Hey everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski here, taking a look at the feature race at Monmouth Park on Saturday. It is race 7, the Cliffhanger Stakes, going a mile and a 16th on the turf course. And we'll take a look at the field of 7 runners signed on for this race. And we do have some New York-based connections shipping in to run here, including the 2 horses drawn towards the outside, going out for the Chad Brown and Christophe Clement Barnes, Public Sector and Big Everest. They are expected to take quite a bit of money in this spot, 2-1 and 8-5 respectively on the morning lines. Both have prior experience against stakes companies, some at the graded stakes level. And Craig, they're definitely the 2 runners to beat, but there are some others in here that look like they have some upside.
There's a couple runners in here that have some up and coming form, with it not being the biggest field. We're going to cover all the horses, so I'm sure we'll get into those, but I don't think this race is a layover by any means.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector to get some insight into how this race might be run through the opening furlongs. And you do see the number 7, Big Everest, shown on a clear early lead. Craig, I'm a little bit surprised to see the fast pace flag showing up, since it does appear like Big Everest is the only confirmed frontrunner in this race. But you do have some others that have been forwardly placed in the past, like James Aloysius and Manor House. But I would be surprised if Big Everest wasn't alone on the lead in this spot.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think he's probably the fastest, even of the horses that have shown speed. But it will be interesting to see if either the other 2, the 1 or the 5 that we have shown in behind, decides to challenge him a little bit early. Not maybe right away for the lead, but somewhere along the backstretch.
And you do see the number 6, Public Sector, does have that LP flag that indicates that he has the highest late pace rating in Timeform US. So if the pace does heat up on the front end, he could be the beneficiary. Let's go through this field in post-position order as we talk about the contenders. We'll begin with the rail horse, the number 1, James Aloysius. And let's take a look at his last race at Keeneland, when he was second in an N2X allowance race. And that is him coming off the far turn, about 4 wide with that orange cap. And this is a horse, Craig, that Luis Saez, who was riding him the last couple of starts, seemed like he was a good fit for this horse, because he's sort of a bicycle horse. You really need to pedal on him. You need to ride him from a long way out, but he typically responds to that urging. And you could see he briefly forged his head in front in mid-stretch, but ultimately got run down by Vivar in the late stages. He's just going to be stepping up in class, but this is just the 5th start of his career, so he does have upside.
Yeah, that's the only real question. It's a step up. You can see his improving speed figures every time out. The 116 isn't that far off of the 2 favorites, and he's just a horse, as you said, he's going to have to get to work on him and stay working on him through the lane, is the jockey Rajiv Moresh. But it's just maybe it's a little too tough for him, but he's a lately raced 4-year-old, so an improvement certainly not out of the question.
Drawn to his outside is a horse that's in a similar situation, the number 2, Smoke and Tea, who will be stepping up out of an optional claiming race, though he won that last start at Churchill Downs when he got a very good trip, saving ground along the inside, tipped out at the top of the stretch, but he really mowed down that leader when asked for his best by John Velasquez that day, and opened up 2.5 lengths at the finish to earn a respectable 117 Timeform US speed figure. Craig, this feels like the kind of Shug McGaughey horse that might just be improving at the right time towards the start of his 4-year-old season.
Yeah, he's yet another 4-year-old whose figures are obviously moving in the right direction. He's not as lightly raced, but he didn't really show this kind of ability when he was running last year. But since he came back this year, particularly when he moved to the turf, I've been really impressed with his 2 efforts. The race 2 back at Gulfstream, he had the far outside post, and that wasn't just her basic allowance race. The horse up to the mark has turned out to be a very good one, maybe even one of the leaders in the turf division right now. So that 3rd place finish is even a little better than it looks. So I like what I've seen from him this year.
Yeah, he's definitely kept good company. Even prior to that, horses like Wolfie's Dynaghost and Annapolis, who won his prior races, there have been good horses in his running lines, and he's had some excuses. So maybe he's just the type that's putting it all together. The number 3 is Sky's Not Falling. Let's take a look at his last race when he won an allowance event at Laurel from just off the pace. And Craig, all things considered, I thought he got a very good trip this day. I know there's a slight comment about trouble in the running line. To me, it was very minor. You could see he's slipping through along the inside here, will tip outside of the leader and run that one down late. he's not the most consistent horse. His form can be a little bit up and down, but when he's got his mind on running, he's pretty good.
He is. He doesn't maybe have the upside of the other two as a 5-year-old and has raced consistently for a while now, but his speed figures aren't that far out of it. And if he were to get that fast-paced setup that the pace projector is predicting, maybe he could do some damage in the lane.
Let's move on to some of the other major contenders towards the outside. The number 6 is Public Sector. Let's take a look at his past performances in Time Form US. And Craig, this is just a horse that's been campaigned in some tougher spots, plenty of graded stakes in his recent running lines, facing horses like Santines, City Man, Set Piece 2-back. His last race at Aqueduct, when he made his 2022 finale in the Knickerbocker, I thought he had a legitimate excuse that day because you could see those blue color coded pace figures indicating that it was a slow pace. And furthermore, that day at Aqueduct, you really wanted to be right on the rail. The inside path seemed to be a significant advantage. And the winner of that race, King Cause, set the pace and rode the rail the entire way. And Public Sector, breaking from the outside post position, was just hung 3 wide around both turns. That was the wrong trip. And his prior form, all 120 plus Time Form US speed figures, would make him pretty tough against this field.
Yeah, that last race was a line through for me. It was one where there was no pace whatsoever. And even that, his speed figure was fine that day once the pace upgrade is accounted for. And he's the fastest horse in the race. It just depends how you think he's going to do off a layoff and if Chad Brown has him well meant.
Chad Brown is one of the best in the game off layoffs, and Chad Brown has also had plenty of success in New Jersey at Monmouth Park over the past several years in non-graded stakes races. You could see this stat does 7 for 12, 58%. So, I mean, short prices in this sample, but what this says is the short prices are generally winning. So I think this certainly applies to Public Sector. And Craig, I think that's just the key for this horse. He's got to get back to the winner's circle because he looked like he was on a trajectory to be a really nice horse as a 3-year-old, winning 4 out of 7 starts in 2021. Last year, he went 0 for 6, but maybe this slight drop in class will prove key for Public Sector.
Yeah, we've seen this move before from Chad Brown, where he drops these horses in at Monmouth. They win, and not only do they win, it also gives them a boost and kind of rejuvenates them and spurs them on to more success later in the year.
The number 7 is Big Everest, the other horse that's likely to take money in this race, shipping in from New York. And let's take a look at his last race when he won the Dangerous Hour coming off the layoff. Just against 2 rivals this day. There were plenty of scratches in this field, and he really got things his own way on the front end as nobody really challenged him for the lead. Did get a challenge in the late stages, though, from the runner-up Anaconda, as this got pretty close for just a 3-horse field. Big Everest, though, does hold on to win by a nose. And he was flattered when that runner-up, Anaconda, did come back to win a stakes race in his next start at Belmont. So the form for Big Everest holds up, Craig, and he's certainly a horse, unlike Public Sector, who loves to win races. He's won 5 of his last 6, but he has had plenty of favorable circumstances in earning those victories. So we'll see if the trip works out as favorably again on Saturday at Monmouth.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical. Maybe he'll get that lone easy lead and be able to hang on again. Like you said, he does like to find a winner's circle, but his speed figures, they're not that great for this field. We talked about the Chad Brown horse who has better speed figures. A couple of the other 4-year-olds have very similar speed figures. So I'm a little bit against this one. Not saying he can't win, but I just don't see any value whatsoever in betting him.
Let's finish it up by talking about a couple of the bigger prices in this race. The number 4 is Sir Sapphire. And Craig, this is a horse that earned one of his better speed figures on the dirt last time in an off-the-turf race. His prior turf form, it's okay, but probably just a little bit cheap for this level. His last victory on turf came in a condition claiming race with a $25,000 tag. Just seems a little overmatched.
Yeah, and the speed figures show that. That would be quite a leap for him. He is just a 4-year-old as well, but it would be a pretty big jump to find him in the winner's circle.
And then the number 5 is Manor House, who will be making his turf debut in this race. All 9 of his prior starts have come on the dirt. There's a little bit of turf pedigree on the dam side. He is a 0.5-to-1 turf winner, though no great shakes there. And Upstart is just a mediocre turf sire. So I didn't see a ton of reason that this horse was supposed to move way up on the turf. And I think he would have to move way up on his prior form to make a significant impact on this race.
Yeah, I was almost wondering if he was entered as sort of a main track only, given his form, because I didn't see much on the turf breeding side either.
Well, let's throw up our picks for this race, Craig, and I think we've got similar ideas here. We're both mildly against the number 7 Big Everest, who figures to be a very short price off all of those recent victories, but he's gotten perfect trips, and I think there are a couple of others to consider it here. You put the horse that could be the bigger price on top, the number 2 Smoke and Tea, and I agree. He's definitely one with upside.
Yeah, I did this before the morning line came out. I actually thought he might be a little bit higher on the morning line, but it is Shug McGahee. I just like that he has maybe a little more upside than Public Sector, while acknowledging that one, in my opinion, is clearly the horse to beat, despite not being the morning line favorite.
Yeah, those are very much the 2 that I want. And I did put Public Sector on top. Just think he's probably a more likely winner than Smoke and Tea, but I wouldn't be surprised if his price does dip down a little bit because he does have those strong class lines in his PPs. So that's a look at the Cliffhanger Stakes on Saturday at Monmouth Park. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.